So this recording is just to focus on something confusing about plants, and that is the alternation of generations life cycle. So we're going to anchor all of our life cycle diagrams in these two processes, meiosis and fertilization. And in sexual reproduction, there's an important difference between parts of the life cycle that are haploid versus parts of the life cycle that are diploid. So this process of fertilization is always going to be defined as single-celled gametes are going to fuse together. So fertilization is fusion of gametes to produce a single-celled zygote. I'm drawing these little circles to represent single-celled. So the gametes are haploid. And so the top half of our life cycle, and that's 1N, one copy of each of the whole set of chromosomes. And so we have these haploid gametes, they go through fertilization, they produce a diploid zygote. So the bottom half of our diagram is going to be 2N. Now this happens in animal life cycles, and something similar happens in fungal life cycles. So this single-celled zygote is going to grow, just like it does in the animal life cycle, into a multi-celled diploid individual, and it does it through the process of mitosis. Mitosis is just going to increase the number of cells, and so this plant is going to go through growth and development. So animals do this too. There's going to be somewhere in the body of this multi-celled individual some kind of sexual reproductive organ where meiosis is going to happen. And meiosis is a special kind of cell division that's going to produce single-celled products. And these are going to be called spores, right? So this doesn't happen in the animal life cycle. In the animal life cycle, meiosis produces gametes. You take a shortcut, it goes straight over here. We don't have any of these weird shenanigans where these single-celled individuals can grow by mitosis into a multi-celled individual that's somewhere on its body. It's going to have some kind of reproductive organ. So this is a body organ. Remember, this is something that's different between land plants and algae. There's a multi-celled body organ that produces the spores and also the gametes. And that this thing that we call a spore is special. It's different than a gamete because a gamete is going to be for this whole purpose of going through the process of fertilization. Spores are going to be produced, they're going to be haploid, they're going to be single-celled, and they're going to grow into a multi-celled haploid individual. This happens in the fungal life cycle, it doesn't happen in the animal's life cycle. All right, so we have these two different kinds of multi-celled individuals in the plant life cycle. And we want to give them different names because they're different things, so we can distinguish between them. On my diagram, they look pretty much the same, but in the real world, in the plant life cycles, they're going to have a different appearance. All right, so this one over here, it's diploid, it grew from a zygote. It's going to make the spores, we're going to call it the sporophyte. And this one over here, it grew from a spore, and it's going to make the gametes, we're going to call it the gametophyte. All right, so when we start looking at the plant life cycles, we're going to be able to tell the difference between some of the different taxa of plants because they're going to do something slightly different with their life cycles. I'm going to start with moss, right? So moss is going to start from a spore and it's going to grow into this tiny little fluffy plant. That's going to be the gametophyte. It's going to make the gametes right here in the very, very tip top. And then the sporophyte actually is going to grow. So the zygote is going to be a fertilized egg that's sitting in the top of a female plant. And so what you're going to have is in the very top of this tiny, tiny little moss plant, The fertilized egg is going to be in the very tip top, right? So this is still the gametophyte. Of our moss. But this fertilized egg is going to start to grow a stalk, and then the stalk is going to get a tip on it, right? So this individual here is the sporophyte. It grows out of the top of the body of the gametophyte. It never has an independent, separate existence, right? So it's a little confusing because we can't draw the sporophyte without drawing the gametophyte. And so this part down here is still the same gametophyte we had up here. And then what's going to come out of this capsule at the top of the sporophyte is going to be the spores. All right. So the individual that we see for a longer time in the environment, in the moss life cycle, is the gametophyte. These fluffy little green guys are going to be around in the environment. It's only going to grow the stalk a certain time of year. Sometimes the female is going to die after that. Sometimes she can live for a long time. But this stalk is basically going to grow. It's going to release the spores, and that's it. It'll die. It sort of dries up. And it's usually brown after that. So it's not doing photosynthesis. It's actually getting its nutrients directly from its mom. All right, so that's the moss life cycle. And I'm going to draw ferns on here too. So the fern sporophyte, is going to be the thing that we think of as a fern, right? It has these leaves that have the little comb-like or feathery leaflets on them. So this is a large individual that we think of as the fern. So this one we think of as the fern. This guy up here we think of as the moss. All right, so the sporophyte in moss is going to be the individual that lives for longer in the environment. It's much larger and it persists for longer. So we're going to say the fern life cycle is sporophyte dominant. That's the kind of individual that we see in the environment. Most of the time, it's much larger and more persistent. In the moss life cycle, we have the little green fluffy guy or gal, and that's going to be the gametophyte instead. So we say that the moss has a gametophyte dominant life cycle because the gametophyte is the kind of individual we see most commonly in the environment. All right, so what does the gametophyte look like for fern? So this body organ that it's going to have on its leaves, these brown dots they get on the back of their leaves, those are going to be where the sporangia are, body organ that makes spores. Spores are going to be produced, they're going to grow, and the gametophyte for fern is going to be tiny little heart-shaped organisms, smaller than my fingernail. And typically we don't see them in the environment because they're very small, they don't live for a very long time, and they are going to only occur in the moist soil, more or less, right? So we have these two different looking individuals that are going to alternate between the generations. So a generation is from parents to offspring. So the offspring of the gametophyte for the moss is the sporophyte, the stalk, and then the offspring of the sporophyte is going to be another gametophyte. Same thing with the fern. Right, these life cycles are really important and the differences between them in the different groups. So it's really important that you understand this. So I strongly encourage you to draw it out yourself a few times and make sure you understand the difference between meiosis and fertilization, haploid and diploid, that you know what a gamete and a zygote are, and a spore, that you know that they are single-celled, and that the sporophyte and the gametophyte are multi-celled. All right.